Hey, good day, folks. Welcome to another episode of Andrew's Life. I am happy to have you guys join me for another episode here. On this video, I will be discussing the parole board here in the state of Alabama. And what I'm going to be talking about is basically what's going on here is there's a lot of you folks out here that want to move here to Alabama for all different kind of reasons, and I'm fairly sure among those reasons, some of you are wanting to move down here because maybe in your home state you may have gotten in trouble a lot, and maybe you just got out of jail or prison not so long ago, and you want to get away from bad influences. You want to distance yourself from negative memories. So you might want to come here to Alabama to start your fresh life. At least that's going to be one of the reasons why some of you might want to come down here. And sometimes when people get in trouble and they may have lived a life of criminology, so to speak, sometimes when people get locked up, rather it be for months or rather even be for years, people get, maybe sometimes in your, from your late teens into your 20s, you was out here doing dumb shit, and you done spent your younger years in and out of jail. You may have even served a bit or two during that time frame. Then there's other folks out here that you might be my age and you're, approaching your mid-40s, and you done spent your life in and out of jail and prison, and you've basically adopted that as part of your lifestyle because you may have lived a life of criminology. And maybe in the state where you're from, if you do something that you shouldn't be doing, and the office and the law enforcement slaps on those cuffs and throws you in the back of the car, and then you go from the car to the police station, and then you go there to the jail, and maybe you might go there to prison depending on what type of crime you may have committed or you might be accused of. You're probably thinking, okay, whatever, I've done this many times before, it ain't no big deal. The judge might give you 5 years and you might only have to serve 5 months, something like that. Or you might get 10 years and maybe on good behavior you get out after a year. Or is there some states that even have laws in place to where up front that if you get a certain amount of time, like for an example, in the state of Florida, you're required to serve 85% of your sentence before you're eligible for parole. Now, as a quick disclaimer on this video, no, I do not do law enforcement. No, I am not no type of attorney or lawyer. I'm just a YouTuber that lives in Alabama currently, and I just want to use this platform to educate some of you who are looking to move to Alabama. And for those of you that have trouble staying on the right side of the law, I just want to use this particular video to let you know what could possibly happen to you, what will most likely happen to you if you get locked up here in the state of Alabama. So, with that being, now initially I was going to just play a video and show you guys a video, but then when I began doing that, I noticed that that video had a whole ton of little background music. And I'm not trying to put the work in and then not get paid, or then the people who created that particular content, they want to come after me. I ain't having that. So just to avoid all the madness, I'm going to have to read you guys bits and pieces of this article. So just bear with me. And so here's the article. Now for starters, let's see. This article, I believe, was written by Kim Chandler out of Montgomery, Alabama. So This article is basically about, as I said at the beginning of the video, it's basically about the parole board here in the state of Alabama. So it goes like this. 71-year-old Leola Harris is confined to a wheelchair, must undergo dialysis 3 times a week, and is in stage renal failure. Her attorney said after serving 19 years of a 35-year deletion sentence, the frail woman is not a threat to anyone and should be released to a nursing home to live out her final days, he argued. The Alabama Parole Board disagreed and last week denied her parole after a brief hearing. She won't be eligible until 2028. Now bear in mind, this article was written back in January, so all this was going on about 6 months ago. Now this particular woman that this article is discussing, apparently this woman claimed that she deleted, I think she deleted like maybe 1 or 2 people. She was claiming self-defense. I believe they tried to break into her home or something of that nature. So she deleted them as a result. And, you know, I guess make a long story short, the jury wasn't buying it, the judge wasn't buying it, and they put her away. So let's keep on going. The rates of state inmates being granted parole in Alabama has plummeted to a new low, with 90% of eligible inmates being rejected last fiscal year, according to agency reports. Critics of the decline say that the board is not following its guidelines and denial has become the default decision. Well, all I gotta say to that is, when does the government ever follow their own guidelines? If breaking their own guidelines benefits them more than it benefits you, best believe there's gonna be some breaking of the rules, so to speak. I mean, understand one thing. For those of you that assume that slavery has been completely abolished, it hasn't. It's just the way that slavery used to be done. That part may be illegal, but if you check the 13th Amendment in the Constitution, slavery is still legal. Like if you get convicted of a crime and you get incarcerated as a result, legally they can use you for free labor, because you are now considered state property. So if they keep you incarcerated, you remain state property. As long as you remain state property, you can be used as free labor to serve the state whichever which way they feel fit. So for those of you out here committing all kind of crime, acting stupid, for those of you parents that got teenagers and you ain't raising them right, you're letting them ride out and do whatever they do, just remember this video, because your son or your daughter, but especially your son, especially if it looks like me, can easily become a statistic and therefore become a victim of this nasty parole system here in the state of Alabama. Let's keep going. This denial is an injustice and a waste of tax dollars. Well, again, the government don't give a damn about your tax dollars. It's your tax dollars, not theirs. Let that soak in for a minute. So let's keep going. This denial is a injustice and a waste of tax dollars, said the former Alabama Chief Justice Sue Bell Cobb, who now heads Redemption Earned. which represented Harris. The group is now a nonprofit law firm that represents aged and ill inmates whom the organization determines are wrongfully released. They are supposed to ask if someone has been accurately punished. She's 71 and has served 19 years without violation in 12 years. So the woman who I was talking about, she's apparently in her 70s and she's got renal failure. Then the next question is, do they pose a risk to public safety? The woman is in a wheelchair and cannot even go to the bathroom by herself. She's dying and they just deny her parole. It is an injustice. It is shameful. Harris' parole was opposed by victims of crime and leniency, an advocacy group for victims and their families, and the state attorney's general office. They argued against Harris's release because she was convicted of deletion. Harris was convicted of deletion for the 2001 deletion of Lynell Norris, who was found deceased at her kitchen table. Harris testified at her trial that Norris was a friend who would often come by her house at night, but maintained she did not delete him, and that someone else was in the house that night. The 3-member board granted parole to 409 inmates and turned down 3,593 others in the fiscal year that ended September 30th, and that will be September 30th of 2022, according to the records from the Alabama Bureau of Pardons and Parole. The grant rate of 10% is a fraction of what it has been in previous years, and comes after 4 straight years of decline. The rate was 31% in the fiscal year of 2019, before falling to 20% in 2020 and then 15% in 2021. So clearly, the state does not care about how sick you are, or they don't care about your about your family being sick. They don't care about your mom maybe being on her deathbed. They don't care about any of that crap. So for those of you that are out here committing crimes, and for those of you parents that aren't raising your sons right, just bear in mind, if they get in trouble and they get locked up here in the state of Alabama, this is what's going to most likely be their fate. And for those of you that are not from Alabama and you're looking to move here, and you know you have issues with staying on the right side of the law, keep this video in mind before you move here. Fair warning. So let's keep going. So parole board chairwoman Lay Groth, I can't pronounce her name, but anyhow, the parole chairwoman declined to comment to questions submitted through an agency spokesperson. State Rep. Chris Anglin, who was called for changes at the board, argued political concerns are driving the limit to releases. Okay, kind of like what I said a couple of minutes or so ago. Because basically, when it comes to politics, you got a lot of politicians that they take pride in being tough on crime, so to speak. And with being tough on crime, like I said a minute ago, if someone gets incarcerated, they become state property, and it is therefore legal for the state to use that person's labor without having to pay them, without having to compensate them properly. So let's keep going. So, okay, so let's see here. Alright, so folks are folks that are pushing this process where we don't release anyone are more concerned with headlines than they are with public safety, England D. Tuscaloosa said. England, a Democrat of Tuscaloosa said. Sorry, I haven't had to read anything with print this small forever, but I really want to get this video out because it's important that those of you that are looking to move to Alabama understand understand how the parole board goes here in Alabama. For those of you that have an issue staying on the right side of the law, even those who are in Alabama, hopefully you guys can get something out of this video as well. It might deter you or somebody close to you from going out here and committing crimes. So let's keep going. So L. Nelson, research director at the legal nonprofit Alabama Appleseed Center for Law and Justice, said that the state is creating conditions for combustion within prisons that the U.S. Department of Justice has said are already among the most violent in the country. And again, there's a lot of states, there's a lot of people that claim the prison where they served is the most violent in the country. I mean, honestly, I don't know any prison that's actually a pleasant place to go serve your time in. I mean, many prisons are going to be violent, and they're going to have other stuff going on that's not so good. So that's why I stay out of trouble. That's why I tend to live my life plain Jane and on the straight and narrow. Let's keep going. We have a parole board that evidently is finding that no one meets whatever standard it has in mind. No one has any hope. We have a despair machine, Nelson says. In 2020, guidelines were put in place, including scoring systems to determine if release is recommended. The board conformed to the guidelines about 30% of the time, according to the state records. So basically what they're saying is, yeah, the state of Alabama, they got guidelines, but you know what? Fuck them. They're going to do what the hell they're going to do. It is what it is. Sadly, that's the type of shenanigans that you got to deal with if you become a inmate here in the state of Alabama. So again, before you go out here in these streets and you commit that crime, think about that. And for those of you that have trouble staying on the right side of the law, before you move here, think about that. Let's keep going. The law says it's up to the board. They have total discretion, Ward stated. He cautioned about comparing parole rates to the years before 2019 because because of sentencing charges. A horrific crime in North Alabama led to a change at the Alabama's parole board in 2018, 8 months after, Jimmy O'Neal Spencer was released on parole. He was charged with deleting 3 people, including a 7-year-old and his grandmother. In 2019, Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signed legislation overhauling the board of appointment process. Well, my attitude is, I understand that Alabama wants to keep the state as safe as possible. I get it. And let's not, Alabama does have an issue with crime. Get it, got it. But I think they ought to go ahead and punish people who are like him on an individual basis, not penalize everybody. Sorry about that, people. So anyhow, let's keep on going. If these folks are upset at the number of inmates paroled, they should come every day and listen to the horrible crimes they committed. They would understand why these violent offenders should serve their sentence. Janet Grantham, Executive Director of Victims of Crime and Legacy, wrote to email. Alright, give me 1 second, people. Alright, folks, my apologies. So let's keep on going here. I've began reading this article, but I got interrupted, so I'm gonna read this article. I'm gonna read this particular part of the article once again. So, anyhow, if these folks are upset about the number of inmates paroled, they should come every day and listen to the horrible crimes they committed. They would understand why these violent offenders should serve their sentence. Janet Grantham, Executive Director of Victims of Crime and Leniency, wrote in the email. Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall defended the low parole rate. By law, the paramount duty of the board is to ensure public safety, not to appease the anti-incarceration community. His office said in a statement released through a spokesman. Stacy George, a former correction officer who has been outspoken about the prison conditions, said he believes that the board should hear from inmates directly, at least remotely via computer, and find out more about their circumstances. People eligible for parole in Alabama currently do not appear before the board. There are people that never need to actually get out of prison, but there are people that do need to get out and get a second chance, George said. Alright, folks. So one more thing. Here in the state of Alabama, when it comes time to when it comes time to where how do I put it? So when your parole time comes up, if you're an inmate, you don't get to speak on your own behalf. Your family has to speak on your behalf. And when your family speaks on your behalf, if I'm not mistaken, they only get like maybe 5 to 9 minutes to speak on your behalf at a parole hearing. So yeah, like in most states, you know, if your parole hearing comes up, you personally, the inmate, you get to speak on your own behalf. Here in Alabama, they ain't having it. Your family will speak on their behalf, not you. In fact, let me look up something. See if I can get some, more accurate information. Alright, so here in the state of Alabama, I just did a little bit of research, and basically your family member, they get 2 minutes to speak on your behalf. And the inmate is able to have an attorney present at their hearing as well. Now, I don't know how much time they get. They didn't state that. But if you bring your family, they get 2 minutes. That's all they get. So yeah, I mean, I guess the moral of the story is, and as I tell you again, I make this video because, number one, if you're looking to move to Alabama, you're hoping to get that fresh start in life. I mean, for starters, for those of you that are down here already, or you're going to come down here, I wish you best of luck. However, if you know that you have issues with staying on the right side of the law, I don't care how minor you think your offenses are, you may not want to move here to Alabama, because if you do, everything I just mentioned in this video about how the state of Alabama Parole Board operates, you could very easily become a victim of it. So yeah, I don't really have much more to say about this. So I thank you for tuning in to another episode of Andrew's Life. Hopefully you guys got something out the video. For those of you that have been through the parole system here in the state of Alabama, I would love to hear from you in the comment section. You can educate myself. You can educate other people that are looking to move to Alabama about how it is for real when it comes to stuff like this. I mean, clearly, if you get in trouble here in Alabama, Sweet Home Alabama, there ain't gonna be nothing sweet about it down here. Alright folks, I'm gonna holler at you later.